An historic church in Great Britain will remain standing as is. It has been spared from being converted into a ladies' health and beauty spa. Dale Hurd has the story from London.
London officials have ruled that a developer cannot turn this great old Anglican church into a wellness center where ladies get facials and have their legs waxed. In the 1800s, St. Mark's Church in the Mayfair district on London's West End echoed the sermons of some of Britain's great preachers and was the church where Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower and his staff worshiped during World War II. But it was abandoned in the 1970s and left to crumble for 2 decades before ministers Rod and Julie Anderson discovered it as they walked down the street.
And basically we had a prayer meeting 17 years ago, walked out on the street, and I said, what's the matter with that building? Why can't we have church there?
Got the doors opened and walked inside of this beautiful, beautiful church to find all the pews pushed to the side and literally about 2 inches worth of pigeon droppings everywhere in this entire church.
And through a series of amazing events, God opened up the door all those years ago.
Commonwealth Church became a vital part of Mayfair, meeting the needs of the poor and elderly. But last year, Commonwealth was evicted from St. Mark's by the Church of England so that the building could be sold to raise cash. This fence was erected after Commonwealth Church was evicted from St. Mark's. It's intended to keep out the homeless, the very people Commonwealth was trying to serve. Commonwealth now worships in a hotel convention center and is thriving there. But the Mayfair community has rallied behind them, creating a public campaign to fight the sale of St. Mark's. Kirk Mitchell, who told us he's not a Christian, heads the effort.
For 14 years, the Commonwealth Christian Fellowship have been interacting with our local community in ways of practical assistance, in ways of spiritual assistance, in ways of friendship. There is not another church in Mayfair that reaches out to the local community and offers the types of practical assistance that's ever been offered to them before and since.
The developer who wanted to buy St. Mark's had already turned one historic London church, Holy Trinity, into a so-called event center, where a recent art exhibition featured Christ in an electric chair, a gorilla on the cross, and the levitating head of John the Baptist. And a few months ago, after St. Mark's had had a fence around it to keep out the poor, the church was opened up again to the rich for this fashion show. But a few weeks ago, London officials decided St. Mark's should remain a place of worship. It may not be returned to Commonwealth Church, but the Andersons say the important thing is that St. Mark's remains a place of worship.
God has kept this since the 1800s. The purpose of this building is it's a holy house of prayer to His glory. There's a restricted covenant that says this shall be a place of worship forever. What do we not understand about forever?
Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
In other news, 2 Argentinian gay activists have been joined together in Latin America's first same-sex marriage. The two had to travel to the southernmost part of the country to find local officials who would marry them. Gay marriage is basically up to local officials in Argentina. Argentina's Congress has yet to vote on a bill legalizing it for the whole country. The suicide bomber who allegedly tried to blow up a U.S.-bound jetliner tells the FBI that there are more like him in Yemen who will also try to blow up American jetliners. Facing those threats, authorities may use more body scanners in airports. These scanners are already used in some airports, but as Jennifer Wishon reports, they are controversial.
High-tech security scanners with the ability to spot explosive powder, like the kind Umar Farouk Abdul Muttalib hid inside his underwear, is already being used at 20 U.S. airports. The whole-body imaging machines use low X-ray levels to create a virtual image of passengers' bodies.
Well, this is important technology to meet the threats that we're facing now.
Unlike metal detectors, the machines can spot plastic or chemical explosives affixed to the body. The reason they're not in every airport? Privacy concerns. The machines conduct a virtual strip search, revealing the size and shape of your body. In airports where they're already being used, passengers can opt to receive a pat-down search by a security officer instead. In June, the House of Representatives voted overwhelmingly against using the machines for primary screenings. It's still pending in the Senate, but some security experts predict the machines will soon become more widely accepted.
You're going to learn to live with that just as we've learned to live with all kinds of other things that people thought were privacy invasions when they first occurred.
Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
A Christian father and daughter have been released from a jail in Pakistan. Earlier this year, CBN News brought you the story of Gulshir Mashi and his daughter Sandal. The two were jailed in October 2008 after Muslims in their town accused them of ripping and burning pages of the Quran. That's a crime that can carry a life sentence in mostly Muslim Pakistan. Gulshir says he was beaten by inmates who tried to force him to convert to Islam during his 14-month imprisonment. Compass Direct News reports a judge dismissed the case after their attorney cross-examined witnesses. The attorney said their testimony was frivolous and fake and the charges unfounded. Religious rights groups say laws against blaspheming the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad are used to harass innocent Christians in Pakistan. Israel is defending its decision to build some 700 new apartments in East Jerusalem neighborhoods. Both the White House and Palestinians blasted the Israeli decision, saying it is an obstacle to peace. Palestinians want East Jerusalem as the capital of a future state, but Israel considers the entire city to be its God-given eternal capital. Jewish immigration to the state of Israel increased for the first time in 10 years in 2009. Immigration is called Aliyah in Hebrew, and it rose by some 17% in 2009. More than 16,000 Jews immigrated to Israel this year, nearly a third of them from English-speaking countries.